Hello everyone, and this is my recording of the SMBP strategy model as it's been developed so far, and I hope that when you've listened to this that you'll give me any comments that you've got that will help us to develop the model further. The strategy model I've now refined into 10 steps. The first of these is to establish governance, to set up the structures that we would want to use in order to manage or lead the implementation of social media within a whole business. Secondly, to prioritize the overall objectives that the organization has for its social media activity. Clearly, these should be aligned with the overall strategic objectives of the organization. Thirdly, to determine the organizational themes, and I struggled here with the word to use for what became themes, but basically the areas of the organization that social media will work through, or more accurately probably the processes in the organization. I'll talk about this further when I get to this particular slide, but this basically determining what the main focuses of social media might be. Fourthly, developing the objectives for each of those themes or focuses. Fifth, developing plans for each of those areas which clearly would be intended to achieve the objectives. Sixth, to conduct a consolidated technology review and selection to basically take an overview of the different plans that each theme will have and see where consolidation should take place in terms of the technologies that might be used. Seventh, to establish the support structure that would be needed in order to support the implementation of the plans that have been developed, and after that the support for the ongoing activities that are using social media. Eighth, the implementation itself. Ninth, a review of the implementation. And finally, the establishment of a structure for continuous review and improvement of the use of social media in the organization. The first stage is the establishment of governance, and this is where we would also engage in discovery around the use of social media. Basically the education of the top echelon of the organization in what social media is all about. But at this point, at the beginning of the strategic development, a working committee should be established which would represent the main areas of the organization. I'm suggesting here that this should involve a manager from each area and also an employee who would be able to take a frontline view of the use of social media in that area. This committee should include people from the communications people inside the organization. For example, the Human Resources Department or Communications or Marketing area, which basically has responsibility for organization-wide communications at the moment. One person should be selected to lead the initiative. The amount of time that they all need to have will depend on the nature of the initiatives to be adopted and presumably the scale of the organization. But you'll want to ensure that they have sufficient time to actually work on the project itself. The working committee will also need to be trained, and this training should include how social media can impact the whole business, how it might be applied in different areas of the business, exposure to social media tools that can be used, and it's suggested here that a consultant may be required to provide support for the planning and implementation that is involved in the whole social media for business performance strategy process. These are the activities that I think would be needed to establish governance. There is one further activity that I might add here, which is to develop the personal usage of social media by this committee. So we want this committee to be engaged with social media itself, and one of the ways to do that, I think, would be to develop their own personal use of it so that they can become familiar with its use. The second stage would be to prioritize the objectives for the social media for business performance strategy. And this would involve consultation with internal and external stakeholders on those objectives. It's suggested that social media tools would be used to do this as part of the process of gaining acceptance for social media in the organization. Social media objectives should be aligned with business objectives, clearly. And I'm proposing a social media objectives and metrics business alignment matrix that would enable this to happen. This would be a fairly simple diagram which is yet to be developed, but which would allow this alignment to happen. For each of the areas of the strategy development process, I think there are various tools that will be developed which will support the development in those areas. So the third stage is the determination of organizational themes. And these themes I've also referred to as focuses and also referred to as perhaps the main highways of communication inside the organization. And these would include employee participation, perhaps, customer engagement, product and service development, supply chain, perhaps supply chain and operations together, and other areas of the organization. What's important here is that these themes or focuses are likely to cross organizational silos where those exist. And I think it's important that in the application of social media, those silos are crossed, so that the full benefits of extending communication across the organization in the different areas that performance can be improved is able to happen. The fourth area is the development of the theme objectives. Clearly these should be aligned with the overall business objectives. So the process here is that we have developed the overall objectives for social media for the whole business, and now we're developing them for each of these individual themes. This may benefit from facilitation by a specialist in order to fully understand and apply the potential benefits that social media might bring in each business area. There is a question here about the extent to which there may be improvement in processes as this takes place. And as this analysis takes place, and likely that is something which benefits could be achieved from. So they should be developed by the group who will manage implementation inside each theme, and the plan should go forward for agreement by the governance committee. The objective there would be to identify any overlaps between different themes and resolve those. That would be the responsibility of the governance committee, who would clearly consult with the different themes as they did that. The fifth area is the development of plans by theme across the organization. And the way that this would be done would be, first of all, to analyze the current state by theme, understanding current social networks, whether those are technology enabled or not, basically understanding the relationships that exist now inside those themes, and considering and using that as a basis to consider the application of social media. Understand the current relationship between social networks and performance, and establish baseline metrics for the current networks. So we'd want to understand how the social networks that exist at the moment are impacting performance, as a way of understanding the potential that social media might have. And we would establish a baseline metric of the current networks. And those metrics would need to depend on the theme itself and the nature of the organization. I don't think it's possible to be especially prescriptive there about exactly what the metrics would be. Next, the desired state by theme would be developed. And this would involve the designing of the new social networks, the identification of appropriate technologies, and this should happen in that order, that the social networks themselves should be identified. Who is it that we want to connect, and what are the technologies that are going to best suit the objectives we have from that connection. And at the same time, we would establish target metrics that would enable us to assess the success of what we were doing. Finally, we create implementation plans to move from the current state to the desired state. The sixth area, it would be the consolidated technology review and selection. And this is a fairly straightforward process where the governance committee would review the technologies that were selected or proposed by theme and consolidate these to minimize the number of technologies that the organization would need to support. Clearly, they would be in the organization's interest for a number of reasons to do that. If people move from one area of the organization to another, it would minimize the number of new technologies they might need to learn. It would make support more straightforward for the support organization that would support the organization's work. And it would also, if people were working with more than one theme, it would make it easy for them to do that. So this consolidated technology review and selection would be intended to help that. Discussions would be undertaken with theme implementation groups and decisions made on which technologies were going to be selected. Seventh, there would be the establishment of a support structure for the organization's use of social media. And I'm not suggesting here that a member of the senior team be appointed with with responsibility only for the organization's use of social media. I think it is the responsibility of all the members of the senior team to be managing the use of social media inside their area. It becomes one of the tools that they would use to do their job. But I think there does need to be a support structure. Again, its scale would depend on the scale of the organization, but which would have some functions that would be performed. First of all, they would support the technology and users to ensure that technically the technology was able to do what it was intended to do, and supporting users to provide them with assistance to be able to learn how to use the technology, and on a continuing basis to ensure that they're conversant with good practices and operating it effectively. This would require some technical expertise, likely, on the part of the support structure. The training would be provided in both functional and technology skills. Communication skills may be an area that the organization would need to strengthen. Business performance improvement using social media would also feature as part of that training to help people to understand how social media can be applied to improve the way that their area of the business would function. Development of a corporate social media policy would be part of the responsibility of the support structure. Clearly the policy would need to be approved by the governance committee, but from them by the senior team of the organization. But a corporate social media policy to guide activity would be appropriate in most organizations. Ongoing technical support would be provided, and the support structure would also be responsible for researching to monitor emerging technologies and advise on their possible adoption by the organisation. The eighth area is managing implementation. This would be undertaken by the governance committee and they would manage the implementation plans by theme. Likely they would want to review progress on a monthly basis and provide support where needed if progress was in some way in need of support. They would make the implementation should be made visible through the use of social media so that people can see what's happening with the implementation, provide their suggestions. Basically, social media will allow us to communicate very effectively about the change that's taken place in the organisation. The governance committee would also measure the impact of the implementation on the business and make the metrics of that progress also visible through the social media channels. Progress would be monitored to identify areas where overlaps in usage occur, and that would be dealt with. As already mentioned, communication would take place with employees on the progress of the implementation. The ninth stage is the implementation review, and this would involve a thorough audit and assessment of implementation on corporate performance, and there would be a process by which the lessons that should be learned from this would be identified. Finally, in the 10th stage, the continuous review and improvement would be established for the ongoing use of social media by the organisation. So ongoing measurement and monitoring of social media activity would be put in place. Employee participation and improvement as part of the employee social media activity would be established. Formal annual reviews of the use of social media would take place. And the social media development and ongoing improvement would be included in the annual corporate objectives. So these are the elements that have been developed so far for the SMBP strategy process. This is very much in draft stage at the moment, and your input on its content would be very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation.